Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Dana Fox and Winnie Holzman, the writers of Wicked. And I have to start with a huge congratulations to your recent Critics' Choice nomination. This film has performed well with audiences, critics, awards bodies so far this year. What does that feel like watching it have this momentum?
Winnie, you
Feels
go
pretty
ahead.
great.
You go.
It feels very good. It's gratifying, and I'm gonna even say humbling, because the reaction has been so incredibly deep and emotional. And this is what we do it for. This is what we're doing is we're hoping to give people an experience that will mean something to them, that will enrich their lives in some way. So to feel like maybe we did that is just the best feeling.
Hmm.
It's been amazing. And also, watching the way people have reached out to say how deeply the movie touched them, the fact that I think a lot of people feel lonely or not seen, or just wherever they are in the world, and hearing from people that the movie reached out to them and made them feel a connection or made them feel seen is honestly like kind of the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It's amazing. So to have the critics understand how much depth we really did put into this also. I mean, a ton of work went into this. We worked together for, I don't know, 2.5 years or something, 150 hours on Zoom, really plumbing the depths of all this material before we ever even started writing. And everything that the critics are seeing in the movie, all the depth that they are finding there is intentional, and we meant it. And so it's really gratifying to see that people are really getting it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And Winnie, you wrote the book for the stage version, and
Yeah.
anytime you translate something to a new medium, it has to shift in some ways, right? And so
Of
how
course.
how difficult was it for you to make changes to this story you've lived with for over 2 decades now?
Well, Sam, I'm going to use the word challenging. Um, uh, it was because it wasn't difficult in the sense of I don't want to make changes, because we wanted to make changes, Stephen and I. First of all, we knew it was going to be a movie early on. I mean, more than 20 years ago, because you know, originally Mark Platt had wanted to make a movie out of Gregory Maguire's brilliant novel, and Stephen Schwartz convinced him, don't make a movie yet. Let me make it into a Broadway show. And so as soon as it became well received and a hit in New York, Stephen and I knew that Universal would want to make this movie. The question for us wasn't, would there be a movie? The question was more like, how can we make sure that it's it's a movie that we're really happy and proud of, and that we feel that we're giving the audience more. You want to no, you want to make sure that the audience is given an even richer, deeper experience. And so that's why I'm saying that it wasn't like I wasn't clinging like, oh, I don't want to change things, but it was like, how can we change things? Because we definitely did, Dana and I, with John Chu and with Stephen, change things. But it's just a question of how can we change things and hold true to the spirit of the show while making it a whole new thing, a whole new kind of, you know, a new, in many ways, an experience that would be, you know, for this time, exactly for this time.
And I have to compliment you, Winnie. You and Stephen were so open to honestly changing things. And we would go on these crazy sort of rumspringas off onto these journeys where we would be like, okay, can you imagine if we're doing this? And instead of that, we're doing this crazy thing. And we would go on these crazy journeys talking about stuff that we could do. And then frequently we would come back to sort of where we had started, the home base of like what worked so beautifully in the play. But because they were so open to going on these kind of creative journeys to discuss this kinds of scenes that were never written, aren't in the movie, but we really played them out. We wrote them frequently. We wrote many scenes that didn't end up in the movie, you know, and that experimentation that led us to have all this richness in what was there. And I think that was all due to the fact that you and Stephen were frankly so open with something that I wouldn't have necessarily been as open with, not only because you'd lived with it so long, but also because the play was so successful. It was sort of hard to, you know, hard to disagree with perfection. So I was really impressed with you guys during that.
Thank you, Dana. But we wanted it to be its own thing, and it truly is. And that a lot of that had to, a lot of that is reflected or enhanced by, or made possible by the fact that it's two movies. You know, that decision that we all made together, with Jon really helping us understand that he believed that it could be two movies, then we had the faith to go, yeah, Jon sees it. We were starting to see what he was talking about with that freedom to expand. You know, Sam, there really isn't a part of the play that we didn't go over in depth together in meetings over and over in deep conversations. And there isn't a place in the play that wasn't expanded for the movie. It's just a question of sometimes it's very, very delicately expanded, and sometimes it's very obviously expanded. And sometimes there are things that, you know, that just really aren't in the play, but they're all coming from the play.
Right.
It was a really, yeah, and it was a really interesting challenge because obviously it's based on a book, which was about a movie, which was based on a book, which became a play, which became a movie. So, you know, there's all this source material, which you would think would be like, you know, an embarrassment of riches and, oh, isn't it easy? And actually it created this sort of intense sense of responsibility that we all felt that we had to the legacy of The Wizard of Oz, for example, to the legacy of the play, which was so beautiful, to the fans of the play who are, you know, so intense in the best way, and wanting to make sure that with the movie, we satisfied those fans first and foremost, and then opened it up to a whole new generation of people who maybe hadn't been fortunate enough to see the play, couldn't get there, not old enough, couldn't afford to, whatever reason, making sure that if they came to this cold without any sense of the play, they would still absolutely love the movie. And then on top of all of that, the sort of biggest question mark was, is it going to hold as two movies? So we were constantly making sure that anything that was a setup and a payoff in Act 1 and then in Act 2 of the play, we were making sure like, oh, wait, that payoff is a year from now. Are we going to feel it? What are we, you know, how do we bolster the feelings that are underneath all of these incredible moments that work beautifully in the play?
Yes.
I'm really curious about your collaboration process between the two of you. What was that like? How did you kind of sit down and say, well, who's handling what with the two of us? How did you sort of work together on the same script?
We kind of divided stuff up, didn't we, at the beginning?
Yeah, Jon sort of told us which chunks to. So basically, we talked on Zoom for 150 plus hours, all of us as a group, Jon, Stephen Schwartz, Winnie, me, broke the scripts, and that sort of made them into like an elaborate beat sheet, which we then turned into an elaborate outline. And once we had that outline and we felt pretty good about it, Jon assigned, you know, Winnie the first 5 scenes, me the next 5, all the way through. He sort of broke them up into chunks that made sense. It's like, you know, Elphaba getting to shiz all the way to the end of Popular or whatever it was. So there were these little chunks of the movies, the movie that made sense to go together. He gave half of them to Winnie, half of them to me. We went off, wrote them separately. Then we kind of like knitted them together into one script. And then at that point, we started passing the script back and forth.
Yes.
But always, and then many times we were all working together. Like we had the script up on Zoom and we were literally going through it line by line, changing words. And
I mean, everything was very, this was very collaborative process. And, you know, there's a lot of, it's hard to describe this kind of process because there is an element of it that's a little mysterious. You're all talking things out very carefully with a lot of detail. And then, you know, ideas are spinning through the air. And then when we go off, it was really a combo platter of going off on our own, but always coming together and always weighing in on each other. And certainly I felt, that I was a part of every moment of the
Of
movie.
course, yeah.
So it wasn't like I'd been not assigned certain parts of the movie, because it was all,
Well, yes, what was assigned was already yours. If it was assigned to anyone, it had already been all yours. You know what I mean?
right. So it
Everything
was
is always together.
exactly. So it was like deeply collaborative. And I think what you end up seeing, I don't know, it's I think that's part of the strength of the script. That we all weighed in and that we all gave everything we had really to it, so that it ends up being, I mean, if you can talk about your own, movie, but if, like, as I'm saying, it was a group effort, it was a collaboration. And those are, it's exciting. I use the word challenging before, which it certainly was, but we also had a time crunch.
Mhm.
Right, Dana?
Yeah, they had told us at the beginning that they had booked stages, and we were like, the movies don't exist yet. What do you mean you booked stages? There's nothing. What are you talking about? So that was it was sort of a delightful breathing down the back of the neck vibe. But again, Universal was lovely with us. They made us feel really supported. And so any pressure was sort of positive, good pressure. It was kind of like, we take this seriously. We're ready to go when you are. But we knew there was a lot to do because of the two movies.
Yes.
And so we all were sort of jamming as hard as we could. And the number of delightful mornings I woke up and got an email from Winnie with all of us attached to it, that she's like, it was the middle of the night. I had this idea, wrote a scene, check it out. And it was just so exciting because,
It was exciting.
when we
Yeah.
first started collaborating, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and Winnie was like my oxygen mask. We were all alone. It was a hard time. I have 3 kids. It was very difficult. And just knowing I was going to get to check in with her and Stephen and Jon and get to be near these incredibly brilliant people, and that they invited me into their world of this legacy of this beautiful project that, I've felt grateful ever since the moment I started it. And I still do to this day. I'm like, I can't believe I'm so lucky as to have been invited into this process. So thank you, Winnie.
Thank you. I think we all feel lucky, honestly. This is,
Yeah.
Dana was talking before about the legacy of these characters and this story, but just to be part of that in any way, in other words, The Wizard of Oz, written at the turn of the last century, this beloved American story that gets made into a beloved, incredible, a brilliant American movie, and then inspires Gregory Maguire to write this political novel. Then Stephen is inspired to convince Mark Platt to make it into a Broadway show. Then we get this incredible, truly, it's a gift, the opportunity to work on it again in a whole new medium with very exciting collaborators, and to bring something new while still keeping to the spirit of what we had. Who gets that opportunity?
And to do it with John Chu every day, honestly, that was such an honor, because he is the most brilliant, creative, extraordinary human, but he's also the nicest, best person. So, every day to be able to watch the way John's brain works on things and the way that he generates his ideas, and he'll say something out loud and then one of us will bounce off it and then somebody else will bounce in. And he's such an extraordinary collaborator. So, just to have the honor of being able to honestly develop the whole script with the director, that's actually quite rare. I haven't really had the chance to do that in a lot of cases. And I think it made the movie, a million X, because he was there every day for the talking about the ideas portion of it, which is
100%. I think that process for us made the movie, combined with, the amazing 2 women that we have, and the amazing rest of the cast, and all of those, and Alice Brooks and all of those designers, incredible designers. I mean, what you just described, Dana, of Jon being there, listening, telling us what he was envisioning, then letting us respond, I mean, it was so collaborative. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an overused word, but when it's really working,
Yeah.
it's magical.
Well, I think one of the magical things that's happened with Wicked, from my fan perspective looking at it, is I remember the Broadway production opened in 2003. I was in high school, but it suddenly felt like there was this mania, that it wasn't just the theater kids who were excited about a Broadway musical. Everyone
Yeah,
had listened to the album, everyone wanted a
yeah,
piece of it. And now it feels like the same thing is happening with the movie, where it's like, yes, guys, musicals are cool. Like, let's get with it. And everyone's watched it. Everyone is coming to it with their own reads on it, whether that's political readings
yeah.
or queer readings, or everyone's bringing their own lens to it. What is it like for you all, having written it? Couldn't have possibly written it from every single perspective, but watching all these audiences bring their selves to it.
Well, this is the goal for me, as a writer, always, that I want people to be able to bring themselves, to see themselves, to somehow feel a part, feel less alone, I would even say. And that's always been something that's uppermost in my mind when I'm writing anything. But with Wicked, it's really been, sort of it's been so clear. I've gotten the joy of seeing that's really how people are responding and feel. And I believe that was, that's because of the compassion and love that we wanted to evoke. The caring, the open-heartedness that we wanted to celebrate, the idea of being able to see someone not on a surface way, not in a judgmental, harsh way, but to see their worth, to see the depth, to see their humanity, to see the love in their heart, just to look with love at others. And all of that, might sound corny, but we need that in this world. We need more of that. And I think people are thirsty for that. And maybe that's part of the reaction. Um, you know, a long time ago, I mean, I'm older than both of you, but I don't know if they say it anymore, but people used to say in this very derogatory way, touchy-feely, it's this sort of mocking way.
Yeah.
To me, what else is there in life that matters
Yeah.
but touchy-feely? I mean, touching others and feeling something, and feeling that you can give people an experience that will help them to feel something beautiful, and and open them to new ideas and feelings. And what's more important than that? I mean, I don't think anything.
I also think there's something interesting that this movie does that I don't see that often in movies, which is that it's I think it's so profoundly universal because it didn't try to be all things to all people. It went so hard at what it actually was. And it was unashamed to be that. It was big, it was beautiful, it was old Hollywood, but new. And it's like it's about a green girl, which is like not the most, it's like nobody's green. So like nobody's ever had that experience. And yet every single one of us feels like Elphaba is us. So somehow it was going so hard at that specificity that ended up making it feel so profoundly universal, I think, to so many people. And I
Oh,
love that
absolutely.
about it.
And Dana, don't you always find that the more specific you are as a writer,
Yeah,
the more universal it becomes? I mean, I think,
100%.
Sam, are you also a writer?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, don't you find that as well? That, I mean, that was one of the things that's really stayed with me my whole life. Noticing this, that the more specific
Mm.
and and authentic I could be, the more universal the more ways I could reach out to others.
Well, I think it's quite an authentic story you've both crafted. So thank you so much, Dana and Winnie, for joining me today, and congratulations on all the success of the
Oh,
Wicked.
thanks.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. So
Thank
nice to
you.
meet you. Thank you. Bye, Winnie. Love you.